Good afternoon. Chairs Lesser and Scanlon, Ranking Member Pavlak D'Amato, and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Paul Formica, and I'm the current Senator of the 20th District, and I come to speak in support of SB326, an act requiring health insurance coverage for coronary calcium scan tests. I did submit some written testimony, I believe, in conjunction with Senator Fasano. You'll have there. I just am here for a short minute to put a personal touch on this and to try to impress upon you the value of moving, in this case, our particular industry from sick care into health care. And I think we have an opportunity to do that with this bill. This bill would provide the opportunity for insurance to cover a very inexpensive scan of one's heart and related arteries. And we all know that it is the #1 killer of women and a leading cause of death in men, mostly because of blockages that occur in the artery. This scan would take a preemptive look at what's happening. I'm here because a little over 10 years ago, I woke up to find my bride on the floor of our living room, I was unable to get her back. And I don't know if this test would have saved her life, but this test would have given us probably a better look at what was going on. And my feeling here today is that we talk so much about the high cost of health care. And I can tell you that the damage that it does to families far exceeds any of that cost. And the cost that to treat someone with a heart event pales to the cost of a test. And so I think I appreciate the opportunity that this committee has done to bring this bill forward for consideration, and I hope we seriously consider it, because I do believe it takes us as an industry from sick care, which is monitoring after events, to health care, which is diet and determination of testing that can give us an insight into what may happen so that we can perhaps alter our lifestyles and to try to change it. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. It's a bit difficult even after 10 years, so I'm sorry if I'm a bit halting here, but it was nothing that we ever expected, and it was been very difficult. So thank you for your time.
I want to thank you, Senator, for being here today and sharing that story with us. It's one that you have shared with this committee before, and I know it's never easy to do it, no matter how many times you do it, but you did it for a reason, which is to help us understand why this is so important. So I want to thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Senator Lesser?
Yeah, I don't have a question, Mr. Chairman, but I do want to thank you, Senator, for sharing your story. And, you know, this committee is all about stories, right? It's about how healthcare impacts everyone, whether you're rich or poor or Democrat or Republican. You know, we all have our health, and that's what we're trying to do in this committee, is to make sure that everybody in the state gets the healthcare that they need. So I don't have anything. There's nothing I can say that will make will add to what you've already said, other than my heart goes out to you, and we will do what we can.
Thank you much.
Representative Pavlak D'Amato.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. I was wondering if you could just tell me a little something about the test. It's the first I've heard of it in this bill, so I don't really know much about it. If there's anything additional information you could provide.
It's a scan. It's called a coronary calcium scan, and it takes a picture, basically, of a specialized X-ray test that provides a picture of your heart that can help doctors detect and measure calcium containing plaque in your arteries, and most often that's what causes the blockage. So this is just basically an X-ray or an ultrasound or a picture that we can take now that will measure that buildup, if any, and then you might have an opportunity simply with diet or medication to reverse it or help it along.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Representative Dathan.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And I know my sister lost her 41-year-old husband 20 some odd years ago, and it never gets easier. So I think you're doing your wife a huge amount of service, and her honor to be here today and sharing your story. So thank you. I also wanted to talk about the test here because I know that there's a lot of people within the population that have naturally high cholesterol, and for one reason or another, and it may or may not be dangerous for them because it's the way their bodies react to it. I think the one thing interesting about this test is it looks at, is the cholesterol causing damage to a patient? And I think one reason this test is so valuable is it can determine that, and the scan can help. So it can either prevent people from unnecessarily going on cholesterol-lowering statins and realizing that there may be some other issue involved. So I appreciate you advocating for this because I do think it's very important. So thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I hope we have further conversations about it.
Representative Vail.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
Is this scan not being, if a doctor wants to do this scan, are insurance companies denying them the ability to do that now? Where's
I don't want to profess to speak for all insurance companies. There may be some in this room that can answer that question better than I, but my understanding is this is not a covered test, and it's a test that costs about $100 or $400, $100 to $400 to take.
Okay, I'll certainly be asking them when they come up.
You know, it'd be my hope that any doctor who recommends any test, gets cooperation from the insurance company. We need to make sure that health professionals are, hold the key to our health decisions, and not just insurance companies. But
I agree. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further questions? Senator Pizarro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Formica, for being here today. You have been an inspiration to me for many different reasons in the short time that I've been here, and today is a perfect example of why. The first time I heard about this test was actually in one of our caucuses not too long ago. One of our fellow senators was telling me about this. He and I were having a very informal conversation, and I was mentioning that I have a history of heart issues in my family, and I had resisted for many years prescriptions for statins, probably unwisely, but and he was telling me about this test, and he said it's a test, and most insurance, and it sounded like it was really easy to do, and it didn't take very long, but the kicker was that most insurance companies did not cover it. And that was the first time I had heard this, and then of course I saw the term come up again as I was preparing for our hearing today. So I think it's certainly something that I would encourage everybody, and I'm going to start with myself, to bring themselves up to speed on and understand and have that dialogue with their care providers about. And if it's something that is relatively easy and doesn't seem like something that would upset the market in terms of having insurance companies provide this as coverage. And when we talk about things that are preventative in nature that can really make an impact on the public health, this is a perfect example of one of those things. So I thank you very much for bringing it to our attention today. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Senator Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Formica, thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you for being here and bringing this issue up. I'm actually I've already put in a request for co-sponsoring this earlier when I saw it. Look, this is actually amazing that at times the insurance industry is so behind in strategic thinking. First of all, if we have a risk stratification which is well studied, and you have a one single test that actually allows you which patients would need further testing, they will end up saving money. And then that's something that's missing from their thinking process at times, is that a simple test which would tell us the calcium score and the probability of coronary artery disease or heart problems going forward in the next many years. And then subsequently after that, they have an opportunity to do more detailed workup on the ones which are at a high risk. And it is sad, actually, I had it done myself because my doctor had asked me, just because I had family history of my father had some heart problems, and I did this. It was pretty straightforward and simple thing, except I had to pay out of my pocket as well, and then like everybody else does. And there's no reason why we would have to go through this. And it's fascinating that we now have to go after individual procedures to bring them through the legislators for the insurance company to do what they insure the people to do. And that's where we are in Connecticut. But I want to thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you very much. And you would think that it would be less expensive in the long run
Yes.
for insurance agencies, so it's a win-win. But I thank you for your comments, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator, for
Thank
being
you,
here today.
James. I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to move on to SB 326.